smoking and she does all the unpleasant stuff. Like, you know, there's more to running a business than just the fun bits. I tend to specialise. Our biggest product would be hot smoked salmon. I get a lot of customers all around the North Coast, bed and breakfasts, cafes and restaurants, as well as private customers locally. And I've had to introduce the notion of hot smoked salmon. People are familiar with cold smoked salmon. That's by far more the most commonly available type. Hot smoked salmon is cooked and smoked at the same time. Basically, it's roasted in a cloud of smoke. And we've been managing to convert a whole lot of people to that product. It's not so readily available. I spent a long time living in New Zealand, where hot smoked foods would be more common, and that was where I learnt those skills, and I've brought them back here. But actually, I think it's probably one of the oldest food types, just up near Coleraine at Mount Sandal there. They found the remains of human habitation there from 10,000 years ago, and they found the remains of salmon, and they found the remains of eel, and obviously those would all have been cooked on open wood fires. They wouldn't have been quite as intensely smoked, but they would definitely have picked up the smoky flavours. So I'm fairly confident that people have been eating smoked roasted salmon here for 10,000 years, although it kind of went out of favour for a few years there, but we're trying to bring it back in. Anyway, today we're lucky to live, when living in Northern Ireland, we're lucky enough to be right at the source of one of the biggest supplies of European eels. And people don't tend to eat them. Round about Toombridge and that area there, people would be enthusiastic about eating them. But the vast majority of the eels that are caught in Lough get exported to Germany and to the Netherlands, where it's a very popular food. But there is a bit of a drive on to take advantage of these local products. And so today what I'm going to do is I'm going to smoke an eel. I've got a couple here. And we're going to hot smoke them. Typically in continental Europe, these would be hot smoked in a kind of barrel arrangement, or they would be hung vertically by the heads. And that there's an awful lot of skill to that. It's a very tricky process. The key to hot smoking foods is to get the internal temperature just right, and it would take a lot of experience to do that, and it would be the kind of thing that you would struggle to demonstrate here. It takes a bit longer. Basically, it's just in a cylindrical or even rectangular vertical notion with a small fire down at the bottom. It produces heat and smoke. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of these portable smokers. I don't know if anybody was here last year. I did a demonstration on hot smoking fish just using an ordinary grill pan, and it can be done just as easily. I'll show you how this works in a minute. But you can smoke, if you are lucky enough to get an eel, you can do what we're going to do, and you can just use an ordinary grill pan, and you put it on top of the cooker and put the heat underneath. So this is a portable hot smoker, and the way it works is quite straightforward. You're going to be applying heat to the bottom of that. You can see it's already had heat applied to it. You put some wood chips of whatever type of wood you want to use in the bottom of that. You put this little trivet on, which just catches any drips from whatever it is you're smoking, and then you put your whatever it is you're smoking onto that rack. Put the lid on, and then put the heat underneath, and that heat causes the wood to start to smoulder. That generates the smoke. It all gets contained in here. Well, most of it gets contained in there, and the heat builds up quite rapidly, and you get a hot smoked product. You can do this if you have a reasonably good extractor fan in your kitchen. You can do it in the kitchen. If you live in Ballycastle, the weather's always sunny and there's no wind, so you can do this out in the back step if you like. Those little portable gas cookers that they only cost about 12 or 15 quid, and they're ideal for this sort of thing. So part of a very important part of hot smoked or any kind of smoking is the pre-cure that you do to the fish, or even if you're doing smoked pork products or smoked chicken breasts, they can all be done in these devices, but it always pays to do them, to treat them somehow beforehand, either by brining them or by dry curing them by applying salt, a mixture of salts and sugars and that sort of thing. That helps to draw some of the moisture out of whatever product it is, and it also seasons the product. So you can make quite complicated cures. You can mix up salt and sugar and spices and herbs. There's a whole art to that as well. I have a friend in New Zealand who he confided in me that what he does is he uses the little bit of liquid that gets left in the bottom of jam jars when you've got the jam out, that bit, and he keeps all that back and he uses that in his cure, so he's got a wee hint of strawberry jam in his cured fish. But anyway, that all takes quite a long time, so we're going to do the process kind of slightly backwards. I've got an eel here, and I'm going to show you how to fillet an eel. If you don't have the apparatus to hang them and smoke them like that, you can cut them into smaller portions for putting in one of these, or for smoking in your grill pan. So I've got some vacuum packed here that I cured these overnight last night. So I'm going to smoke these ones, and I'm going to get them on to smoke while we're chatting about filleting and the curing process. So it'll all be a little bit backwards. We're not going to eat these ones, we're going to eat these ones. Festive atmosphere. I've been lucky enough, I don't know if it's going to make much difference, but this is very prestigious wood. I like beech. Beech is a good wood to generate the smoke. And this particular beech I got from a friend of mine who got it from the world famous Dark Hedges. So this is going to be we're going to have King's Road eel made with wood that came from a couple of the trees got blown over recently, and Gerard Gray, who's a woodworker, he's got a stall out there. He's been turning bowls from it, and he's been providing me with some of the beech wood. I have a strong suspicion that the beech wood from the Dark Hedges will taste pretty much similar to the beech wood from anywhere else. But anyway, it's a slightly special touch for all you Game of Thrones fans. So put some of the wood chips in the bottom, put that trivet on there, and pop that in. I'm just going to do this. One of the things that's vitally important when you're dealing with any kind of fish, but particularly with eel, is to have a sharp knife. I'll talk about that in a second, but I'm just going to pop these in here. So these have been cured using a dry cure, mixture of salt and sugar, and I've chopped them up into smallish portions. If you leave them in long sections, they tend to curl up, which I've taken the backbone out. I'll show you that process in a minute. There are some small bones in the eel, but they're not the kind of bones that would get stuck in your throat. They're just sort of hair-like things. And so I haven't removed every single one. When I'm smoking the salmon, I fillet the fish, and then carefully go along and remove all the pin bones, which are quite substantial in a salmon. But you might find wee bones in here, but that's all just part of Mother Nature's harvest. The advantage in filleting them is that the smoke flavours get exposed directly to the flesh of the fish, and that means that they get absorbed more readily. Fish skin, and in particular eel skin, is very tough, and if you were just to cure them externally and try and smoke them externally, they would still be cooked and it would still be nice to eat, but the flavours of the smoky flavours wouldn't penetrate so much. You wouldn't get such a rich thing. So that just goes in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick a thermometer probe into the centre of one of those, and that'll allow me to just reach the optimum temperature. It's important to make sure that there's a minimum temperature which you would want to achieve for food safety reasons. Now I'm hoping that this is switched on. It is. That's good. I'll just get my thermometer. I use a digital thermometer with all of my smoking. They've got Teflon-coated probes that you can pop in, and it, apart from the food safety side of things, it allows me great control over just exactly what extent I want to carry on the cooking process. So I've got two probes here. I'll put one of them into just into the chamber itself. That'll tell me what the ambient temperature in there is, and I would aim to get it to between 90 and 120 degrees C. It's not absolutely critical if you're monitoring the temperature inside the eel. So I just push that straight in there. Now I'm going to leave the lid off for a moment. You should start to see some smoke. It just takes a moment for the base of it to heat through. I can smell it at the moment. I don't know, can you see the smoke starting to rise? So I'm just going to pop the lid on there and then abandon that. I'm not really familiar with using this cooker, so I'll probably have to nip up and down a wee bit and check things. Now, so last night, before I went to bed at a very late hour, I cured a couple of eels. So there's a good-sized Lough eel. They've got an unusual lifestyle. Salmon spend most of their adult life in the sea, and then they come back to fresh water to spawn. Eels have taken a different approach, and they spend most of their adult life in fresh water, and then they migrate to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, to the Sargasso Sea, where they spawn, and then the juveniles swim back and swim up the rivers, and then they spend most of their adult life in freshwater. I don't know which is the best approach. It seems strange that they've developed. They obviously, both species believe that they're doing the right thing, I'm quite sure. So what we want to do, there's a very stiff bone in there. I use one of these. It's a filleting knife, and it's made of some kind of magic material which protects your hand from cuts. You know, if your knife slips, it's going to... But it's also got very good grip. Now, if you don't want to invest in one of these, an ordinary woolen glove is a useful thing when you're handling eels, particularly in the earlier part of it, because they're notoriously slimy to start with. To get the slime off them, I use just cover them with salt and rub salt onto them and then run them under the tap, and you can keep doing that for quite a long time until you kind of get to the stage where it's no longer slimy and you can just feel the skin there. So when you're filleting an eel, again, a very, very sharp knife is important. I've got one of these little devices which allows me to sharpen the knife to different angles. Most kitchen knives would be sharpened at an angle of 20 degrees. That's the most kind of universal angle that the blade would be sharpened to. It's sharp, but it's also fairly strong. If it's a narrower angle at 17 degrees, which is only 3 degrees, but it would make the edge quite kind of fragile. But it's worth it with an eel to have it. And these things are quite simple to operate. You just basically draw it through there. And there's a couple of blades that take the edge off it. And there's this little part here is ceramic, and it just polishes up. And it's not really for cutting through the bones, it's because the skin is so tough. Let me just check. That's good. So the temperature in the oven there is about 66 degrees at the moment. It'll rise up slowly. And anyway, so this is the head end. These have already been gutted and cleaned. So I'm just going to make a cut in behind. You can. I don't know if you want to gather round. You might not be able to see down there. Can you see on the screen all right? Okay. So I'm just take a cut into the flesh like that, and then this is a nice narrow knife. Some people prefer to use a broad-bladed knife. So I'm just running along the backbone, trying to keep the knife as close as possible, the tip of the knife as close as possible to the center line of the fish to gather it all up. I find that I like to smoke it with the skin on because it helps to hold it all together. And then when yes, some people do, but for using this particular equipment here, it tends to stick to the rack, and so you have a beautifully smoked object, but you can't get it out. So there we are. There's a nice fillet of eel, and there's the backbone all the way down there, like that. So to get the other fillet out, just run down the edge of the backbone. And then, leaving the other fillet on the table, just go along and carefully, you've got to keep the knife angled up towards the spine. I'm not going to bother with this little tail piece. Just take it like that. Up here, turn that round. And that's for the cat. Oh, it doesn't really matter. Thank you, but no, the weight of it just keeps it on. So you can feel that there are some small bones there. They're the kind of things that you could spit out. Now, if you were to cut them just in half, when you smoke them, they would kind of curl up a wee bit, and that's fine, but slightly less attractive. They're quite precious things. So I would tend to cut them into portions about that size. And then we can pop them in. So, once we've done that, I like to dry cure them rather than brining them. So what I might do, I'll just pop them into this tray here. And I've got some salt is the thing that draws most of the moisture out, but it can sometimes be too salty. So if you mix it with sugar, the final flavors are a bit less salty. The sugar gets absorbed to a certain extent, but it also helps to draw the water out. And so I have a mixture. I use pure sea salt and demerara sugar and soft brown sugar mixed together. And I just basically stick them right onto that. No, slightly more salt to sugar. So about 4, I use ladles, but 4 tablespoonfuls. Perhaps about 4 tablespoonfuls of salt and 2 tablespoonfuls of brown sugar and half a tablespoonful of the soft, dark brown sugar. And it's not absolutely vital how much you put on, so long as it's fully covered. And I'm just going to leave this at room temperature. Normally, curing process would happen in the fridge, so I would just put that back into the fridge. But it's slightly quicker if you do it at room temperature, and I'm going to discard this afterwards. I just want to show you what happens. Can you see? It's all fairly dry, but over the next sort of 15 minutes or so, you'll see it starts to pull the moisture out, and you can just see that cure process happening. I'll just put that in there for the moment. And that off. So that's smoking away nicely. We've reached a temperature of about 53 degrees in there. The temperature that I want to reach is 75 degrees. That's amply safe, and it hasn't dried it out too much. The trouble with traditional methods of hot smoking is it's very difficult to tell exactly what the core temperature of your product is. This is much easier to do. So, pop that in. And it's rising up nicely. Now, I'll just. I did some last night, but I've just realised I've left them over at my stall. Can I wander over there? I'll be back just in 1 minute. It's in my ice box over at the smoked salmon. Hang on. Oh, sorry about that. Nearly there. So here's some that we did last night. I just need to wash my knife. Hang on. I'd like you to just come up and help yourself to some of these little portions. Just break a little bit off. And there we are.
Do you normally serve it hot or cold?
I like all of these smoked things cold, but you can have them hot or cold.
What do you serve them with?
Well, Mel did a delicious thing for us the other day with a mixture. It was like a beautiful salad made with wild salad things. She had dandelion leaves and a whole variety of things from the weeds from the garden. But you can serve it. It's nice with oatcakes. It can be a wee bit.
It's very hard to break that up plastic forks.
Is it? Can I encourage you to use your fingers? If
Here.
I will. Yeah.
Your hands will be cleaner than mine. You grab a piece. I want to bring a piece back to your man as well.
There we are. If it was hot, it would be.
Be easier, wouldn't it?
It would be a bit more crumbly. But
I'll run off with this one now.
run off with it. There you go.
Is this yours, Bill?
Taste. I'll be back down in a second. I just want to show you these ones here. I got a wee bit distracted, so it's slightly overdone, but still beautiful to look at. And the colour comes partly from the smoke and partly from the caramelization of the residual sugar that's in the eel and also that's been applied through the cure process. So there we are. Now, I'm just going to let this cool down a little bit, then I'll put it back down for people to help themselves, and I'll dig into some more of these. So it's very much, people have a tendency to go, ooh, eel, because it's got a wriggly kind of way of swimming about, but I don't know why. It's a beautiful fish. And as I say, in world terms, it's a real rarity, but we're lucky enough to have it here on our doorstep. The Lough Fishermen's Cooperative have their business is based in Tombridge, and you can buy eels directly from them. They also...
They have a vitamin powder?
I think so. You pay to give them a ring. Help yourself. You can see it's just kind of curled away from the skin there, but Any comments on the flavour? Anybody that's tried it?
Thank you so much.
Oh. You take that plate. You guys. Thank you. Of course.
I actually live in the shores a lot.
I'll see you. You get it quite a lot. So you get it quite a lot. Do you eat it a lot?
All right, vegetarian. I have to cook it out in the garage.
All right. That's a shame. That's a shame. So, do you like the flavour of the smoke, the hot smoke? Does it?
Yeah, smoke, yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Mm.
Lovely, thank you.
Good. There we are. You can see if you look at the raw pieces here, how the moisture is starting to get pulled out. What's that? Eel, yeah. Mm-hmm. So we just hot smoked it using this little container here just a few minutes ago. So if you want to try some of the hot stuff, there you go. I'll just take it off the skin.